In comments on my recent video on Tesla's new supercomputer Dojo, which I'll link right here, several of you asked for more information about why Elon Musk and Andrej Karpathy went on and on to say that Tesla's new 4D training and processing is such a big deal. The two biggest items are data continuity and trajectory projection. These two related items constitute a massive leap forward and open a path to true level 4 autonomy. Here's why. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. This channel is dedicated to finding out whether I really do know it all or not. If you enjoyed the video, definitely make sure you hit the like button so other people can find it, and definitely make sure you subscribe for more of these. In fact, we're doing a 2,500 or 3,000, it's going up quickly, but we're doing a thank you subscriber giveaway right now, and you can win your very own copy of Watchmen. There you go. So watch my last video linked up here for details about the subscriber giveaway. And in the meantime, I really do want to say I really appreciate all the subscribers and all the love. It's been pretty amazing and kind of overwhelming in the past couple weeks. So thank you all. I really do appreciate it. So onto the topic of trajectory projection and data continuity. I want to give just a hint of background here, and I'll actually link the article in the description, but in my master's thesis, which was published, I did work on image-based recall, which is basically a quasi-semantic way of identifying objects via a neural network and then finding other objects in a database of images. So semantics really quickly is just basically the meaning of words or the meaning of things. So semantically, for a computer to recognize a cat doesn't mean that it really understands that it's a cat. It just means that that arrangement of edges and pixels and colors and so forth is associated with a label that it knows called cat. And so that's how it's doing it. So I call it quasi-semantic because it's not understanding in the sense that humans understand what a cat is, but it does understand what a cat is, for example. So of course, for humans, this is something we learn along with language as babies, right? At an early age, we learn cats, dogs, cars, mommy, daddy, etc., right? So we learn that a certain blob of colors is mommy, and a certain blob of colors is your hand. Right. Or else if you're high, maybe you look at your hand and you have the same exact thing, right? Or that another blob of colors is the couch or whatever. So what we think of as basic knowledge like this is actually really difficult for humans to understand, but we have a lot of millions of years of evolution for that. But it's also super difficult for computers to understand that. Therefore, this is actually still kind of cutting edge research. It's been done a lot, but refining this and getting better at it is still definitely cutting edge research. And when I say it's been done a lot, I mean really in the last like 8 or 9 years, it's been done a lot with the advancement of neural networks and so forth. So it's just amazingly recent how this has advanced to a stage where it's competitive with and even better than humans. So neural networks are really good at effectively extracting data. In other words, they can find a dog in a picture and label it as a dog picture, right? So it's like it can understand how to do that in the sense that it knows what a dog is in terms of pixels. Again, not human understanding. We're not talking about that. So, you know, that it just basically has a way of associating a bunch of lines and color segments and shapes with a label it's been given called dog. So, okay. So that's the difference, right, between humans and specialized AI, not generalized AI. If we ever get generalized AI, it'll actually understand more or less the way human beings understand. And that's why it's such a big deal and why it's so terrifying. And actually, I did an episode on the singularity up there if you happen to want to go back and look at that one. So for driving, what is the issue? Well, okay, so the problem is that knowing that a picture contains something related to a semantic label dog doesn't give the computer any insight about what a dog is. And more importantly, it doesn't give insight into how a dog behaves, right? So, you know, versus like maybe there's a trash bag, right? So you have a black Labrador retriever that's a dog, and you have a black trash bag that's full, and they kind of look similar. And a computer might be able to say, well, that's a trash bag and that's a dog. But what are the differences between those two for a driving machine? If you're in a car, well, if you're the computer driving the car, what are the differences between those things? Those behave very, very differently, and you need to know that as a car in order to drive effectively at level 4, level 5 autonomy. In addition, if it identifies a dog in one picture traditionally, that doesn't help it figure out what's in the next picture. So that's continuity, right? So we have trajectory projection, which means where is something going, and we have data continuity, which means if I know what something is in one picture, I should be able to predict, or I should know that it's that in the next picture and the next picture. In other words, 4-dimensionally over time, which is why they keep talking about 4D as opposed to like 2.5D training that was going on before. So to go back to our dog example, in general, this is not an issue if you're doing like a Google search for dogs, right? Google goes out, or DuckDuckGo or whatever other search engine goes out and figures out what these pixels are, what these shapes are, etc. And it only has to find images. That's no problem at all. But this becomes a big deal when we get to video sequence processing, right? So we have frame 1, processing the stuff, right? This is a dog, right? In this little box is a dog. Get to frame 2, processing. This is a dog. Frame 3, processing. Is that a dog still? Don't quite know. This is very inefficient because it has to reprocess everything at every single frame, and it's prone to error at any given frame because it might just decide that that's not a dog on one given frame. And so then you've got dog, not dog, right? So you've got this weird error thing that's going on, which causes a lot of noisiness, which causes problems for the driving capabilities. So what this leads to with current technology is very rudimentary driving skills. As I noted in a previous video, it's kind of like having an early student driver in the car, right? They're super cautious. They make dumb mistakes. It hugs the center of the lane. If it gets confused, it slows down in the middle of no reason whatsoever, just phantom braking, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all problematic areas that need to be resolved if we're really going to have, the science fiction full self-driving with the robot actually driving your car.
You're in a Johnny Cab.
I mean, what am I doing here?
I'm sorry. Would you please rephrase the question?
So what we need in order to make this happen, of course, as I've been saying, is we need continuity of data over a long sequence of frames, or video, in other words, plus a temporally semantic understanding of what the car is seeing. That second part is going to need a little more unpacking. So this is where 4D training comes in, right? In the previous modes and with most other autopilot kind of stuff that I know about, full self-driving looked at 8 individual camera images plus the radar plus the sonar about every 30th of a second. That's a really fast processing, by the way, to be able to do that fast. It processed all of this information separately, it identified the objects, and then it acted on this. And then basically, more or less, it threw out that information and started over again with the next frame, which is wholly inefficient and also leads to errors. So no wonder it got stuck at local maxima and couldn't really pull off autonomous driving. That's it's a really hard problem to solve. So what does the new full self-driving beta with 4D capabilities give us? Okay, as I stated before, it's a completely ground up rewrite of the software with new models, new neural network models, and new algorithms involved. And it really utilizes the Tesla inference engine, the chips that Tesla has in its cars, which are super, super fast. So for one thing, all 8 cameras are now stitched together in one view, and it's also considered to be a video sequence rather than individual images. Again, that's where 4D, because the fourth dimension is time, right? As Einstein figured out. In addition, we've also got object detection, which has more semantic or meaning information in it. So now let's go back. So we have frame 1, processing. This is a dog. Frame 2, is that dog still there and has it moved a little bit? Yes. So you see how much faster that is? Frame 3, is that dog still there and has it moved a little bit? Yes, etc. So we've just shaved off a whole bunch of processing, and we've got the likelihood that we're going to make fewer mistakes in terms of identifying that dog over time. So obviously this data continuity over time is exactly what the 4D that Musk and Karpathy are talking about. And what this 4D training opens the door to is trajectory projection. That's actually a really hard thing to say, trajectory. But anyway, this requires a great deal more knowledge on the computer's part because it has to understand what these objects are. So now to repeat our thought experiment, we get frame 1, processing. This is a dog. What is a dog? A dog is an object that can move under its own power in these potential ways. Frame 2, is that dog still there? Yes. Has it moved or changed shape? Yes, it has stood up. Frame 3, is that dog still there? Yes. Has it moved? Yes, it has taken a step towards the front right of the car. At which point, warning, right? This object, dog, is in our model as an object that can move rapidly and can intersect the ego car. And the ego car is just the name of the car which contains this computer. Thus, the computer knows now that it needs to take immediate steps to avoid this object, which can move on its own, or at the very least, it needs to brake quickly to avoid collision with the object. If you think about the difference between that dog and a trash bag, if it identifies this as a trash bag, a full trash bag is not going to move on its own. So if the trash bag is on the edge of the road, it would have a completely different set of calculations that would go on. It would say, object trash bag will not move on its own, right? Unless it fell off the back of a truck, in which case it's bouncing. But let's just say it's sitting there, just like the dog was. It will say, object trash bag, oh, object trash bag is in the way. Can I safely move over into the median or into another lane? If yes, then it'll just move out of the way and drive around. So it would treat that very differently than a dog because it has semantic knowledge of what those two objects are. So of course, this type of trajectory projection is what humans do extremely well, at least if we're paying attention when we're driving. Distracted driving is a whole other thing. But computers have been just really unable to do this before, which is why they're really not very good at self-driving. And that's why you have companies like Waymo and GM Cruise and so forth that are mapping out exact environments around them with LiDAR, and they can follow those things, right? It's kind of like being on a roller coaster. They can follow the roller coaster, and they can detect things that come into the way and brake and so forth, but they don't have nearly the understanding that Tesla's new full self-driving software has. So think about how insanely difficult this is. How many objects exist in the world? I mean, that could come in contact with a car. There are a lot. I mean, not infinite numbers, but there are an awful lot. And even the categories is a lot of different categories. There's animals, there's, just like dead physical objects like rocks or trash bags or things. There's other cars, which obviously involve human beings. There's tumbleweeds. There's random pieces of plastic bags floating around, right? Which things are dangerous? Which aren't? Which do you need to deal with? Which don't you need to deal with? All of those are really complicated questions to answer. Of course, some of these objects, like other cars and dogs and things, are controlled by, another ego, which is another brain, which can cause them to move in very erratic ways. Other objects will stay still, like a light pole, and other objects, like what if a log falls off the back of a truck or something, right? Then that is being controlled by physics momentum. So you have to deal with that differently also, right? And then you have to figure out which things are close enough to be within sort of danger area and which things are far enough away. So if there's a human being who's on a sidewalk walking, ignore that person. If there's a human being who's jumping out from behind a car, you need to really deal with that immediately. Those are totally different situations. So these are extremely difficult processes, but if full self-driving beta is as good as it looks to be doing this trajectory projection, and if it can improve rapidly using Dojo and billions of miles of driver data, it really can solve level 4 and then, of course, level 5 autonomy and usher in a future where we can sit back and enjoy our cars driving us where we need to go. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that episode and found it informative to some extent. If you did, definitely remember to subscribe, and also subscribe in order to be entered into the 2,500, 3,000 subscriber giveaway that is growing. I also wanted to give a big shout out to our new patrons on Patreon, Andrew Lloyd and Carol Gustafson. Thank you so much. If you want to join, is a link in the description for that as well. And thank you so much. As always, thank you to all the subscribers. And for sure, make sure you ask me questions in the comments or at my email address, which is DrKnowItAllKnows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.